One thing that I take away today is like, I go over a lot of negative stuff today. That's not to like scare anybody or bum you out or anything, but I think that it's good to have the full picture of the market and the possibilities and what you need to know. So sometimes people leave a little bit bummed, but just take away that it's doable to buy a house at any price point, at any time frame. We can work something out for you. Cool. So market trends, we were talking about that a little bit. Right now, it's hard to buy a house. So there's still a ton of buyers out there. There's not as much inventory as historically. The last 5-6 years have just had not been a whole lot of houses for sale for some reason. Right now, currently, for the past 3 years, we have the most inventory homes for sale right now for the past 3 years. So that sounds good when you say it out loud, but it's still not enough. All of our listings, we've had around 15 listings since the beginning of the year. Most of them are selling within a week. Most of them are getting 4, 5, 6 plus offers. I wrote on 3 properties this week when I represent buyers and sellers. I wrote some offers for our buyers this week. 2 of them were flips. They both got over 10 offers. The other one got 7 offers. We got that one. And then I offered on something last night, actually. We were the only offer. So that house right there had been on the market for 16 days. So if you're bopping around Zillow or Redfin or whatever, a really good tip if you're looking for a good price on a house is to look at homes for sale for over 15 days. Ideally 20 days, but 15 days they're starting to worry a little bit like, hey, why aren't we getting any offers that are good, right? So that's a good time to get an offer accepted at or below list price, maybe with some contingencies, and we'll kind of go over what those mean. But it can put you in an advantageous situation. And the reason they're on the market for too long, though, is usually because they're not that nice. They're not that nice, or they're overpriced, or there's something wrong with it, or it's next to like a busy road or something like that. So that's another thing that I like to stress to buyers, new buyers, experienced buyers, investors, anybody, is that the house doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I know that when people walk into our open houses, we prep the house really well, and everybody walks in, they're like, wow, this is so nice, right? You walk into a house like that, everybody is saying that. Like, everybody's gonna offer on that house, right? We're trying to trick you into paying more money for the house. That's our job as a listing agent when we're selling a house, selling agent. Our job is to get you the best deals possible as a buyer agent. So don't be tricked by like new flooring, new paint. Like the flooring in this space right here, it costs us like $8,000, you know? It's not, and it's nice. But if you have like old dirty carpet, you know that you can buy the house and then replace that dirty carpet for like $10,000 and it'll look like a new house sometimes, painting. Hey, you guys here for the Buyer Workshop? Oh, is this your people? Yeah, there you go. Cool. If they're hungry, please let them eat some food. Cool. Thanks, guys. Where was I? What was I talking about? About what? Carpeting. About carpeting. Don't be tricked by that stuff. So when we list properties, every dollar that we put in listing, selling, when we're helping the sellers sell properties, every dollar that we put into a listing to a house, we're expecting to get 3 or 4 back. So typically, I'll spend around $25,000 on like a single family home, even like a condo, townhouse, around $25,000 to $80,000 sometimes, just to prep the house. New bathrooms, new kitchen, paint, light fixtures, flooring, grass, stuff like that. And if I can put in $25,000, we're usually making like around another $100,000 on the price. So bless you. So if you can look past the beautifulness and all the staging and all the fancy things that we do to try to trick you, you're gonna get a better price on a house. So bless you, bless you, bless you. Homes that are on the market over 20 days, homes that do not look fantastic when you go in, we can make them look fantastic. Because time and time again, people buy their house and they're like, oh, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. When we move in a couple months, we're gonna do the kitchen, do the bathroom. Then I go over there 2 years later and they haven't done anything because it's just the place that you live. You know, like same thing with our house. We've been living there 7 years now, I believe. Just came up on the 7-year mark. I've still got the same broken window as when we bought it. Instead of fixing it and spending $500, I have like a little stick that I put in there that it leans on when I want to open it. And it just becomes your day-to-day, your normal stuff. So have an open mind, all that stuff, especially when it comes to price, because it's just so expensive around here, right? So market trends right now, it's a seller's market. Not as extreme of a seller's market as we saw last year. Last year, people were falling all over themselves. We got around like 15% appreciation from year to year for last year. So this year, it shot up quite a bit in the first couple of months, but it's not as crazy. Another tip, if you're looking to buy a house, buy them during June, July, November, December. That's a great thing to write down. June, July, November, December. Why is that? Especially for single family homes, for anything that's like 3 bedrooms plus, like family stuff. June, July kids are, any kids? No? Good for you guys. we got kids. We got kids. And you'll know that during the summer months, kids get out of school and you go on vacation, especially you get busy, right? A lot of people that are buying homes around here have a really good income. Most of them were not born here. They're tech from somewhere else, immigrants from some other place. So a lot of times they spend a month, 2 months during the summertime. During those November, December months, the holiday months, they go on vacation for like a month and a half, 2 months sometimes. So during the summer months, June, July, and the holiday months, November, December, I know that there's usually about 33% of buyers around there are out of town. And another like 15, 20% are just not looking because they're busy. It's a pain in the butt to go out and look at houses every weekend, do all that. Somebody else? No? Cool. So we bought a handful of houses. I've never bought them outside those months. So I believe in it. Right? Actually, I flipped a house, last year. I bought it in like January, but that's a different story. People were still waking up a little bit. So doable right now. It's just expensive, right? Does that answer your market trends? Where are we going? You want to know where we're going? Okay, where we're going, I have no idea. If I knew that, man, it'd be so good.
Prices are dropping slightly?
No, I mean, even since the first year, we've gone up around like 4%. So like February, March, April, May, those 4 months are always the buyer months. That's quarter of the year, or third of the year. Those months are always super duper hot. We'll see great appreciation. And then the summer hits, it'll go down a little bit. And then August, September, October, it's kind of middling, and then it'll go down again. And so these 4 months that we're in right now is where we see most of the appreciation year after year for the last 15 years. But yeah, so people saying that prices are going down, they're not. Yeah. They might though. I mean, like we were talking about before we started, the tariffs, and like there's some uncertainty in the stock market. When Trump was elected, he's a real estate guy. Everybody's like, oh, like mortgage rates are going to go down and everything's going to be okay. It seems a little volatile right now, to where I think over the next few months, keep an eye on the market. You might see prices go down a little bit. But it's all, especially here in the Bay Area, in the South Bay and Silicon Valley especially, it all goes off of big tech stock. So just look at the top ones. Look at Google, Apple, Meta, Nvidia. Those are like most of the people that are buying houses. So if you see big tech going down week after week, like most of the people that are buying houses are losing a lot of money. So they suspend their search, they put it on hold. So big tech really drives the market around here. And we're pretty special. We're only like the most expensive houses in the world. Like Los Altos, Atherton, like square feet wise, are up there with like Manhattan, Singapore. So also like another tip for you is that the most expensive houses in the world are in Palo Alto, right? Palo Alto, Atherton, that area. The further you can get away from there, the more you're going to be able to afford. That's why I live in South San Jose. Like if I want an even cheaper house, I go a little further south San Jose. If I want an even cheaper house, I go to Morgan Hill. If I want an even cheaper house, I go to Gilroy. And that's why people live out in Hollister, Tracy, stuff like that, because they can afford more house. Just like Palo Alto is going to be more expensive than Mountain View. Mountain View is going to be more expensive than Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale is more expensive than Santa Clara. So every like 3 miles you get away from Palo Alto, you're going down like $100,000, $150,000 in price, which is crazy. People just don't want to drive to work. You know, that's basically what it is. If you're going in 5 days a week, you're spending an hour each way. That's 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours a week. It really starts adding up, especially when you have kids and whatnot. You're just not seeing them at night. So that's what's driving all the prices around here. The three main contributors to price is location, proximity to big tech, then schools, and then the house. So if you can get away from the big tech centers, a little bit of distance from there, in places that don't have the best schools, if you don't have kids, and the house is like average, like you see some potential in it, like that's really where you can start getting some great value. Still expensive, but. Any questions? You good? All right, let's get into this a little bit. So these are the 5 main steps to buy a house up here. So easy, 5 steps. First one is pre-approval. So if you're not buying a house right now, you don't need to get a pre-approval. If you're just popping around, seeing what everything looks like, getting used to the market, you can just talk to some lenders. So you can talk to any bank that you want. I've got some great lenders that I've been working with over the last 10 years that I trust. Chris Perky at US Bank, Satish Dedrall at Wells Fargo, they both can give you great information for free, even if you're not buying a house right now. They can also forecast the next 5 years and what they think rates are going to do and go. If you talk to any like lender, a lot of them are salespeople, so rates are always going down, right? Like it's always a good time to buy because in the future rates are going to go down and you can refinance. But these guys will tell you straight, like especially Satish, he's turned down so much business from me, like, hey, you'd be better served at this credit union, or these guys over here, they're running a good program. So they can give you good advice on when is a good time to buy a house for your unique situation, because everybody's unique. Everybody's a snowflake. So pre-approval is like the bank's saying, we'll loan you some money, basically. You give them all your financial data, your W-2s, last 2 years of tax returns, your assets, your liabilities, do you own another house? Like, so that's something depending on how title is and where the loans are, if you guys still have loans on the properties, on your rentals. They're going to look at those as liabilities. So when you own a house already, bank thinks that that's a liability. It's not an asset because you're paying money per month, even if it's got a great deal on it, whatever. So they're not going to be able to loan you as much money. They're going to offer you a higher interest rate. So depending on your situation, it'll affect you. You don't own any property, right? No? Great. So you're going to be very normal. You're a very, very normal case. If you own your own business, they don't love giving you as much money, giving you as better of an interest rate. But if you're a W-2 employee that doesn't own another house, like you're ideal for everybody. Not that your situation is bad. You own houses. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. That's really good. So you give them all that financial data. They put it in the old lending machine, beep, boop, bop, and they spit out a number. We'll lend you $1 million. You can buy a $1.2 million house, whatever, at that X interest rate. So that's if you bought a house today. That interest rate that they put on your pre-approval will go up, it'll go down, with the market. So it's not a guarantee what it has on it. But mostly what it's saying is that this bank is going to offer you this amount of money. You can buy this amount of house. So that's great. You want to know that stuff. They also do a hard credit check on you. That's why I'm like, unless you're really looking for a house, I would just talk to a lender and get an idea of it versus getting the actual pre-approval. So when you're ready to buy a house, we get you your pre-approval. And then there's one thing beyond a pre-approval that I highly suggest if you all ever end up actually buying a house, starting to search. It's called pre-underwriter approval. So pre-approval has the word approval in it, but they're actually not like approving you for anything. It's just Joe at Bank of America saying that Jennifer can buy a $1.2 million house. So Bank of America hasn't actually seen your financial documents or anything. Just Joe is saying that you can afford this, right? So then you go get an offer accepted on the house, send the contract to Joe. Joe sends it to the underwriters at the bank, and then they approve it there, right? So if Joe's doing his job correctly, the underwriters will think the same thing. You can buy a $1.2 million house. But if Joe's terrible at his job or just trying to sell you something, he sends it to the underwriters, and they're like, Jennifer can't afford a $1.2 million house. She can just afford a $1 million house. At that point, you're probably going to lose some money. You're going to get some sort of fine. They're going to take some money from you because you have a 3% deposit in. So bad things can happen even if you still have a pre-approval. So one step further is called pre-underwriting approval. So in that situation, you get the pre-approval from Joe at Bank of America, and then before you even offer on a house, even before you start your search, he sends the file to the underwriters, and then they underwrite the loan. Bank of America writes off on it, approves it, and then you go out and you can offer on a house with the pre-underwriter approval. Why don't they do that for everybody? They used to, but it costs a lot of money. Like people that end up starting a search for a home, like only around like 50% actually end up following through and buying a house. So Bank of America doesn't want to do the underwriting on all these people and spend 5 to 25 human employee hours on working on Jennifer's file if she's not actually going to buy a home. So they really like it. You go get your offer accepted, you come back, and then they'll do the underwriting and spend the money on you. But once you get pre-underwriter approval, you're a cash offer. Like Bank of America has guaranteed that money to you. They've approved it. They've written off on it, right? So I can go into an offer presentation. We're offering on that $1.2 million house. And I'd be like, yeah, Jennifer is pre-underwriter approval with Bank of America. It's basically a cash offer, even though you're 20% down or whatever it is, like they've written off on it. Typically, you get your offer accepted, then it's like a 30-day grace period, an escrow period until you actually own the home. So we can shrink that down with pre-underwriting approval to like half, like 15 days. It's also a slam dunk guaranteed offer. So would you like a cash offer and close in 15 days, 2 weeks shorter? Of course they would, right? So it's a big advantage to you. So there's not one thing that we can do to get our offer accepted as a buyer, but there's like 15 little things that we can do that make you look more impressive with each little step. Pre-underwriter approval is one of them. Like other things are like writing a clean offer, like no mistakes on our offer. When we list properties, it's amazing the quality of offers that we get sometimes. Like my name's Taylor. I've been called Tyler on offers more times than I can count. Like it's amazing. I'll go over some of the other little tips as well, but like pre-approval, when you talk to banks about your pre-approval, get the highest one you can. Like even if you're offering on a $500,000 property, if your pre-approval says $2 million on it, you just look more impressive. You know, like some people are worried about, well, don't they know we can go up in price? Like, yeah, they all know you can go up in price. Like, no, very rarely is someone like buying at the very tippy top of what the bank will tell them they can afford, right? So the more impressive you can look at any step, the better off you're going to be. And that also brings me to like real estate in general. So real estate in general is a great industry. I love being in it. We're good at it. We keep our firm pretty small, so we select the people that are actually good at it. But once you get out there, start going to open houses, start meeting realtors, stuff like that, the quality of person, quality of realtor out there is subpar most of the time. So when you're hiring a realtor, just work with us first off. Come on, you're already here. We gave you Panda Express. But interview some people. Interview a handful of people because when I got my real estate license 10 years ago, I studied for like a month and got my license. It's a 150 question multiple choice test. You have to get a 70% on it to pass. There's no college classes that you got to take, anything like that. So you both seem like you're fairly smart. You could probably study for a couple months and become a realtor and get your license. So basically everybody has their realtor's license is what I'm trying to say. And 70%, 75% of the realtors that I run across, I don't think are any good. And if you're buying a house, you're selling a house, they're making a lot of money off of you, off your transaction. And you're paying for it as buyers. Like a lot of times the sellers end up paying both agents, but where do you think they're getting that money? From you, right? You're paying for the house. They're paying the agents with the proceeds of that. So be diligent in who you work with. Just because someone has a cool smile and seems like they're really friendly doesn't mean that they're a good real estate agent, all right? So be careful out there. Lenders are a little more streamlined. Like people are actually checking them, so they're a little bit more, even if they're a terrible person, like Bank of America, Wells Fargo is the one that's actually doing the work on them. So they're more just like salespeople. So pre-underwriter approval, get that if you're looking for a home. The next step is locating a house. Like I said, further you can get away from Palo Alto, more house you're going to be able to afford. One really good way to to find an area that you want to afford. Like, we'll keep on picking on Bank of America. If they say that you can afford $1 million property, don't go look at $1 million properties right away. Like, look at $700,000 properties, $600,000. See if you like those, because you don't need to go. Everybody wants to stretch on their price point. Like right now, I have a $5 million buyer and I have a $600,000 buyer, right? Working with both of them equally, equal time, all that stuff. So one has a 10x budget on it, right? So $5 million, and she still sends me $6 million properties. Like, she's like, look how much more we can get at $6 million. Like, yeah, it's $1 million more, dude. Yeah, you're gonna get more. And then my $600,000 like sends me like $700,000, $800,000 properties. So like everybody, even though within their budget, they see the next step, no matter what price point they're at, and they're like, we could get so much more. Yeah, but make sure that you're comfortable with the down payment, the monthly payment. That's stuff that the bank can help you with, what those look like. So if you get $1 million pre-approval, we'll go under a little bit. But to find those areas, look at sold properties. So you're probably on Zillow, Redfin, all that stuff, looking at properties, right? Everybody is. Instead of looking for sale, active properties, look for properties that have already been sold over the last 3 months. So switch the filter to the sold over the last 3 months, and then set your price point, right? So if we're looking for $1.2 million in Sunnyvale, that's gonna be a hard price point. Like if we're looking for $1.2 million down where I live, like that's more doable. And once you see it on the map, you'll see pockets. Like you put 1.2, like there'll be nothing in Mountain View. Like just a tiny little bit in Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, there'll be some, and like you'll see where the pockets are, right? And where your price point is hitting consistently when you're looking at sold properties, just go there. Like even if there's no houses for sale, like just drive around there, spend 10 minutes on the weekend, drive around that area, see if you like it. If there's anything for sale in your price point, go take a look at it. Going out and seeing houses and seeing places is really the best way to start. Like talk to a lender, that's the best thing to do. Then go out and go look at some open houses. I'll even go with you even if you're not searching like right now. If you're like in 5 years I want to buy a house, I'll still go with you to these open houses and like teach you how a house works basically. Spend some time with you on the weekdays, weekends. Got no problem with that. So locating a place, look at sold properties, find your little pockets. You don't want to be the guy or gal that's running to like Alameda and then Dublin and then we're over in Gilroy and all over the place. We want to kind of shrink our search area to a couple different cities, a couple different neighborhoods. If you are searching seriously, you can be able to do that over the course of like a few weeks. Doable. So then we end up finding a house and we love it for whatever reason. I get on the phone at the house if we're seriously looking. If we're seriously looking, I'll get on the phone with the real estate agent, the listing agent at the house, put it on speakerphone so you can listen to it and be like, hey, what's your action been like? What's the price point? What are you guys expecting? Why are the sellers selling? I staple like 4 or 5 questions. And then I ask for the disclosure package. So we've talked to the bank, we've located some areas that we want to buy, and then we found something and we want to learn more about this specific house. How do we do that? So they have a big disclosure package that they will provide us. Every seller, every listing agent will have this. Oh, thought I heard somebody over there. What's in the disclosure package? A lot of stuff. Some of it is junk. Some of it's very important. It's pretty extensive. So today after this, I got to go through 2 disclosure packages. It'll take me to get through one, probably like an hour and a half, something like that, to be able to summarize it, just because I know the documents. For somebody like you just starting out, it'll take you about 4 hours to get through a disclosure package. For all my buyers, I go through the entire thing and then summarize it. This is a red flag. This looks bad, but I don't think it's as bad as it is. Like, this is saying it'll cost $5,000. I think we can get it done for like more like 2, or maybe we don't have to do it at all. Or I think that in the inspections, they're making light of this foundation crack. Like they're saying it's not a big deal, but it looks pretty gnarly. Like I would get a foundation expert to look at this. So I'll summarize everything for you as well. The biggest things in there, there's seller assigned disclosures. It's basically a list of like 150 questions that the seller has to answer about their house. How old is the roof? Are the pipes copper or galvanized steel? When's the last time it's been painted? Has anybody died in the house over the last 3 years? You have to disclose that. 7 years for like a murder. If that's a really big deal to you, someone passing away in the house, we can ask them We can request written request and say, has anybody to your knowledge ever passed away in the house? They have to answer that truthfully, even if it's 50 years ago and it was their grandma or whatever it was. So seller signed disclosures are good, but it's the seller, basically we're counting on the seller to be honest with us in there, right? And some sellers are in the gray area a little bit on that stuff. So we go a step further and we get inspections done. So third-party independent inspectors come in, they take a look at the house. There's 3 main inspections: roof, what kind of condition is the roof in? There's pest, that's anything gross, like anything that's dry rot, mold, fungus, any kind of water damage, any kind of leaks, termites, beetles, rodents, anything gross is the pest inspection. Anything that's affecting the structural integrity of the house. And then there's also the home inspection, which is all the systems of the house, the electrical, all that stuff. So there's 5 main systems of a house. There's the electrical, the plumbing, the windows, the foundation, and the roof. If you can get all those good in a house, everything else is basically cosmetic. Those are all big ticket items. Those are all like 20K plus, all that stuff, if you've got issues with those things. So we try to stay away from big problems in those. So we go through the seller assigned disclosures, the inspections. Is this house terrible shape? Is it okay shape? Is it really great shape? It takes around like 30-ish years, 35 years for a house really starting to wear down a little bit. My house is built in 1971, so we're over 50 years old on it. It's been good to us. We haven't had any major problems or anything. But newer houses, around that 30-year mark, they'll start showing some wear. Roofs take around 30 years to die. So, and if you're buying something that's newer than that, there's not a whole lot to worry about. If you're buying something that's more than 30 years old, we just need to be diligent in what we're doing and making sure we're not getting you a lemon or anything like that. We're trying to keep you away from the big mistake. So if disclosures are terrible, we don't offer. Maybe we offer less. If they're really great, we put up a good offer. But price is always, it should be, always a discussion. Your realtor, you should be counting on your realtor for insight and a ballpark figure, things like that. I try to stay away from like, hey, let's offer 1.55 million. Like it's not my money. It's not my house. I'm not living there. You're living there. So it's more of a discussion. I think it'll go in this ballpark, but where are you comfortable with? Like you shouldn't be pushed on price ever. Like you should be getting facts and information and there should be discussion there. But really, ultimately, the price comes down to you. And that's something that I say with all my buyers. I said it last night. We got an offer accepted last night where like, what's the value to you? You know, like I think it's worth 1.55. That doesn't mean that it is. Like I do this for a living. Yeah, I probably have more insight than you guys, but do I know it's going to be at 1.55? Like, no, I don't know that. There's 4 other people offering on the house. It only takes one person to go really crazy to make us look really stupid. Like someone could just offer 1.7 and we're sitting there at 1.55 going, oh my God. And then I've seen it go lower. I try not to give false hope, but I've seen it go much lower in those multiple offer situations as well. Like sometimes you can be really surprised. So if you're offering what you're comfortable with, even if you lose out, you still gave it your best shot, right? There's always going to be another house. Like people are always going to be moving for their jobs, getting divorced, dying. Houses will always come out on the market. So just if you lose out on a couple different houses, although it hurts and it's a bummer, it's not the end of the world. There's always going to be another house. So price is a discussion. I'll tell you what I think, but it's always ends up being your decision. If you want to offer 15 times before you end up getting a house, that's cool. That's fine. If you want to just do it once, that's fine. If you want to offer $10 on a house, I'll write that offer for you. I've got no problem. But I'm always going to give you my truth. Like, hey, I don't think this is a good number. You know, like that doesn't mean that I'm being mean to you or like our relationship is affected or anything. But I'll tell you my truth on all that stuff. It's not for everybody. Some people, I hold hands. I always tell people that I'm a professional hand holder. That's what I do. I lead people through this stuff. But that doesn't mean that I can't be upfront with you guys on what's happening there. Then we attack, come with our price, then we offer. I always offer in person. That's really effective. Like I said, a lot of real estate agents are kind of crappy. So they usually just email it in, don't even make a phone call. Like if I'm listing a property and selling a property, and if I get your offer and I've never heard from you, or like even through text or anything, like that offer goes to the bottom. Like I'm not going to be doing business with somebody that I know is going to be subpar at what they do. We're talking about millions of dollars of transactions. Like, we need to be taught, we need to be working with people that know what they're doing, right? So I take it a little step further. I go there in person, and old school style, I print out the entire thing like an old guy, and we go over how our offer is structured, what the lender looks like. We have pre-underwriter approval. I get the lender on the phone, put it on speakerphone, pop it on the table, and go through that, trying to make them feel as comfortable as possible. Why did we do that? We filled out all the disclosures. What does that mean? And then even if they don't let me offer in person, I'll always do a video. So I'll sit in front of my computer, do a little video, do the same presentation, send it over to them. Please send this to your sellers, just so they're feeling comfortable. Really, that's my job as a buyer agent, is try to make the sellers and listing agent feel so comfortable with us that they know that we're going to close and everything's going to be easy. They don't have to do anything, right? Like, in my presentation, I'm always like, hey, I'll take care of everything. You just sign our offer at $1.5 million, and in 15 days from now, your seller's going to get their money because we have pre-underwriter approval. My buyer knows what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. Trying to make you look more impressive than you are, even though I'm sure you guys are very impressive. What else? Interest rates. That's something everybody likes right now. What's interest rates look like? We're around like 6.5 right now. They went down this week, so yeah, probably around 6.5. This year, we've closed people at a 5.65% interest rate, and then all the way up to like 7.5, 7.75, somewhere in that region. So your interest rate varies pretty greatly depending on who you are. If you got a lot of money, they want to give you a good interest rate. If you don't have a lot of money, they'll give you an okay interest rate. But one thing that's important is the interest rate can change. Like, you can refinance. You can always get a lower interest rate depending on what the market dictates. But you can't change the offer price. The price of the house doesn't change. So versus, it sounds a little salesy thing to say, but I would worry less about the interest rate than the actual price of the house, because you're only going to pay more on the price in the future because it gets reassessed at a higher rate each year. So you pay a little bit higher property taxes each year you own the property. But your interest rate, we can lower that at some point, hopefully. Not a guarantee, but ideally over the next 5 years, rates are going to be around 5, hopefully something like that. Any questions? You good? Perfect. If our offer is accepted, one of these days, if you end up searching for a house, I'll give you a call and say, I did it last night. And then I talked to them just before this. They're all super pumped. I'll say, hey, congratulations, you got an offer accepted on your house. And then the next business day, you're going to have 3% of the purchase price in with the escrow company. So, an escrow company. Not a lot of people even know what that is. So an escrow company is a third independent party that making sure everybody's playing by the rules. So you have buyer, seller, and escrow company. So when you do down payment, you don't give it to the seller, and they don't run away to Mexico with your money or anything. You give it to the escrow company. All the physical documents, loan documents, go to the escrow company. All of the insurance information goes to the escrow company. They hold everything. They also produce HOA docs, things like that. Make sure you get clear title. So get our offer accepted, one business day. 3% goes in with the escrow company, and they hold it. So that 3% is kind of our point of no return, I always say. Like, once that 3% goes in, you've got money on the line, like, you're buying the house. So if Jennifer, let's not duck, we'll pick on you. So if, say you're buying a house, you get your offer accepted, you put in your 3% deposit, and then 10 days later, you're like, you know what, I don't want to buy the house anymore. Something changed, right? I don't want to buy this house. The seller's going to be like, that's fine. You guys don't have to buy the house, but we're taking that 3% deposit. That's ours. It's a huge amount of money, right? On $1 million, you're talking $30,000. So you can get out of it, but they're going to take some money for you. So once that 3% goes in, tomorrow is our 3% deposit is due, and we'll have a discussion with that buyer and be like, hey, like, this is serious. You know, like, they're first-time home buyers as well. So once this 3% goes in, if there's any like worries, concerns, we need to get them out right now, because in 2 hours, you're buying a house pretty much. So we have a very serious conversation there. So the 3% is there to make sure that you follow through on your purchase pretty much, that you don't screw something up over the next 30 days. That's part of your down payment. So if you're 20% down payment, which is fairly typical, you do 3% at the very beginning and then 17% near the end of the escrow period. So don't mess up. Once you get your 3% deposit in, buy the house. Close of escrow date, like I said, usually around 30 days, but we can get it done even less with pre-underwriter approval, around that 15 to 18 to 21 day period, something in there. Contingencies. So when we're writing an offer, we can write contingencies into the offer that protect us if something goes bad. If you decide not to buy the house or whatever, if we had a contingency, we'd be able to use that contingency to cancel the agreement and get your money back. You wouldn't find any money. So I'm going to go over the 3 main contingencies, and then I'll talk about how they don't matter as much after. So the 3 main contingencies: property, loan, and appraisal contingencies. Property contingency is the physical nature of the property. So if we're offering on a property and we see there's some issue with the foundation, is an easy example. Like there's some cracks in the foundation, the explanation seemed a little vague, we want to inspect it a little further. We write their offer for $1 million, and we have a 10-day property contingency to figure out what's going on with this crack in the foundation. So we get our offer accepted, put on a 3% deposit, and then we have 10 days to vet the foundation. So we bring our own foundation inspector out. They take a look at the property and the entire foundation, but they look at this problem. They say, hey, this is not that big of a deal. Like this is $1,000, something like that. We can put a Band-Aid on it pretty much and it'll be fine. So you go, okay, not a problem. We'll go ahead and pay the $1,000 and we'll release our contingency and we'll buy the house. But if they come in, they're like, hey, this is a huge problem. This is like a $50,000 repair and there's another place in the foundation over here that we have to spend another $25,000. At that point, we can go back to the seller and be like, hey, they're talking about $75,000 worth of damage. Can we reduce the price by $70,000? Can you give us a credit? Can we get some cash back? If they say yes, yeah, we come to a conclusion, drop the contingency, buy the house. But if they say no, and you're like, I don't feel comfortable taking on this $75,000 problem, we can just cancel the contract again. You get your 3% deposit back. They go find another buyer. We go find another house, and we part ways. So contingencies are great. You can get your money back, right? Loan contingency is the underwriting process. So if we get our offer accepted, Joe we were using before at Bank of America, if Joe's not doing his job correctly and the underwriter says that we can't afford it, we can go ahead and cancel the deal and get our money back. But for property and loan, like if we have pre-underwriter approval, there's no reason for a loan contingency. There's no approval process. It's already been done. And if we are being diligent in the disclosure package and making sure that we're okay with everything in the property, we don't need a property contingency really. So there's workarounds for the property and loan contingency. But the appraisal contingency is a little different. It's the hardest one. So I don't want to get too far into it, but what happens every time pretty much is we'll stick with Bank of America again. You're buying a house for $1 million with Bank of America. So they want to make sure that the house is worth $1 million, because if you default on your payments and you lose the house and go bankrupt or whatever, they get the house and they have to sell it off for spare parts basically. So they want to make sure that there's value in the house at $1 million. So they send out a third-party appraiser and they put a valuation on the house. Like 90% of the time it comes back right on the purchase price because it doesn't make anybody angry. So if it comes back right on the purchase price, that's awesome. Transaction goes on as planned, you buy the house. But every once in a while they come back and they're short, like whatever, let's say $30,000. So they appraise it for $970,000. That $30,000 gap, they're not going to loan you that money anymore because they don't think it's a solid investment to loan you that money at whatever interest rate. So instead of paying 20% down, you're going to have to pay another $30,000 down to push the transaction through. So if the gap is humongous, like $100,000, which it typically isn't, like Jennifer, do you have another $100,000 that we can plop down on this house, on this down payment? If that's not the case, you would have to fall out of contract, pay some kind of fee, maybe try to rework the deal with another bank, but it turns into a huge bummer. And there's no workaround for it, really. Like there's no trick. The only trick that we have figured out is I show up. I show up to the actual appraisal. I bring the appraiser a nice little bottle of wine and lunch, lunch usually. And then I print out my comps, the stuff that is similar in the area. And I apply appreciation rates for county, city, neighborhoods sometimes. I try to weasel my way into a valuation that makes sense. I do a quick and dirty appraisal at the table and give it to them. And I usually get some kind of response like, oh, like, yeah, this looks great. And I can go back to you and be like, yeah, I think it went great. Or they're like, oh, like, I don't, like this, and this, I'm not so sure about that. Then I can come back to you and be like, it didn't go that great. Like, they had some pretty serious questions about our valuation. We might underappraise. Let's go ahead and get in front of it right now if that does happen, right? So there's no trick like pre-underwriting approval. Basically, I show up and be nice and really hope that they see our valuation, pretty much. So the appraisal is the biggest question mark out there. Any question on contingencies? So contingencies sound great, right? They protect us. You can get your money back if something bad happens. But 80%, around 81% of our offers that I've gotten accepted over the last 5 years have been non-contingent offers. So we don't get any of this protection. So that means that other people are offering on the house basically. So years and years ago, competition got so extreme in the Bay Area that people are like, there's 10 offers on a house, and they all had contingencies. And then buyers to stand out were like, well, what if we give up all of our contingencies? Like, what if we get our offer accepted, and if anything bad happens, we take all the responsibility and all falls on us as buyers? Sellers love that, right? So all sellers have to do when they have non-contingent offers is accept the offer, and like, they don't have to sweat anything for the next 30 days until they get their money, because if something bad happens, they're going to get your 3% deposit, right? So now most of the buyers out there, if there's multiple offers on a property, they have to drop their contingencies, which is a bummer. It's puts you at extra risk. I'm the first person to tell you that if you submit a non-contingent offer and get it accepted, you are at extra risk. But if we're doing all the steps correctly, really only the thing that we have to worry about is the appraisal. And properties only underappraise around 5% of the time, and we usually see it coming. So it does put you at extra risk. If you do end up buying a property, it's probably going to be the option that you're going to have to go with. If you have other questions about it, we can talk about it at a separate time. But it's a bummer for buyers. Like, they have to assume a lot of the risk, and they're paying all the money. But like I said, as long as we're doing the steps correctly, you'll be okay. I've never gotten any my clients. I've done around 300 buyers in the last 10 years. Maybe like more like 280, something around there. And I've never gotten any of our buyers 3% taken. We've gotten really close a couple times, but we were able to figure out a solution to it. So I'm fairly confident that a non-contingent offer, you'd be just fine. Possible multiple offers. Most of the time, you're just going to get multiple offers on a house. So there's 4 things that can happen. Say there's 5 offers on a house that we're offering on at $1 million because it's easy for me. And you know, the number one thing that they can do is they think we're so great and we put up such a good number, they can just accept our offer right away. They can also say no, is number 2. But we're never out of it until they sign an agreement with somebody else and it's done and official, right? So even if they say that we're low on our price, we can always come back and we can raise our price, remove our contingencies, whatever. But there's 2 other options are the counters. So multiple counter is the worst possible outcome, basically. So there's 5 offers, and the seller says, we would love to work with the top 3. We're going to send a multiple counter to these top 3 at $1.1 million. So it's not the first person to say, yes, we accept 1.1 and send it back. What they're doing basically is they're opening up exclusive negotiations with these 3 parties, and the suggested price is 1.1 million. We don't have to go to 1.1 million. We can go under. We can hit it right on the nose. A lot of times to win the multiple counter situation, you have to go over the number. Sometimes they don't give you a number at all. Sometimes they're like, just give us your best offer, right? So those 3 people come back in. I'll submit another offer. We do another round of negotiations. And then hopefully at that point, the seller will go ahead and accept something. But sometimes even after a round of multiple counters, they come back and they'll come to me and be like, hey, can Jennifer go up another 10K? and then I'm going back to you again and be like, hey, can I have more money? They want more money, which is crazy, right? There's like 5 people trying to give them millions of dollars, and they can only pick one. There's just more people out here with money than people with houses. So the multiple offer, multiple counter scenario can get a little bit emotional. I try to stay away from the emotions of buying a house, but as sellers, it's easy to do away with the emotions because you just see numbers. But with buyers, it always becomes a little bit emotional, right? It's an emotional decision to buy something, especially when you're going to be living in for a while. So multiple counter, it can get a little bit sticky, but we always work through it. A really great case is just a single counter. So that's when there's 5 offers. They really like us for some reason, and they're like, hey, we'll go ahead and sign with you for 1.1 million. Then we actually have the power to make a decision. Like, being a buyer is such a reactionary situation to be in the entire time. You're reacting to information, to what the seller's doing, the information that I'm giving you. But when you get a counter, they're like, we'll do this at 1.1 million. We can finally make the decision to say yes or no, which is a good scenario to be in. So when a seller or listing agent, I'm representing a buyer, I'm talking to the seller or listing agent, and they're like, oh, we're going to do a multiple counter. I'm always pushing for a single counter. Like, just send us a single counter. Like, you know we're going to be the winners anyways. Like, you like us, we're going to do a good job. I have a good buyer. Just send us a single counter, and then we'll accept it, right? So I'm always pushing for that single counter versus a multiple counter. Any questions on that? Yep, good. We're almost out of here. At the very bottom here, how long does it take someone to typically buy a home? About 3 months, like if you're looking pretty seriously. 3 months is about standard. A month to kind of like figure all this stuff out, where you want to buy. Second month, you're looking at disclosure packages, like, oh, I really like this neighborhood. Third month, you're usually like figuring out how everything really works, like market conditions and all that. You're probably putting an offer in around that third month if you're pretty diligent. Around 3 months, I've taken out people and they've bought something on the first tour we've been out, which I do not suggest. Like, I suggest putting some time and effort into your search. I've also had clients that have taken like a year and 8 months. We were searching, like we were being pretty diligent on our search. I do not recommend that at all either. A lot of people in that situation, like, you get priced out of the market. Like, in certain years, it appreciates at 20%. If you're looking for a year plus, a year later, you can't afford the house that you were looking for at the beginning of your search. So trying to keep it a tidy search within under like a half a year, I would suggest. If you can get it done in around 3 months, it makes a lot of sense. Because it's like having a part-time job. You've got your jobs, your families, your stuff, your friends, stuff on the weekends. You showed up here on the weekends, so that's good. You're interested enough to do that. But yeah, you're going to be spending a handful of hours each week doing something that you'd rather not be doing. You know, like, you're going to be paying a lot of money, but and spending some time. But if you can get it done, it really does pay off in the end, for sure. Fixing up a house, how much? That's something, if you want to go out and look at actual houses, I can give you an idea of when we're in a house, like 1,500 square foot house, new floor in that, it's going to cost you around like $11,000, $12,000, $13,000, something in there, depending on your quality of flooring. Each bathroom, if you want a whole new bathroom, take everything out, all the stuff, floor everything, and then put a whole new bathroom in, you're around like $20,000 to $30,000. We can also get it done for like $15,000 on the really extreme low end. I can remodel the bathroom for around like $5,000 and make it look like it's brand new. We can also spend $50,000 on a bathroom pretty easily. It just depends on how fancy you are. Kitchen, similar. You can get it done for around like $25K up to $50K, something in that region. $30,000 to $35,000 is pretty normal. My in-laws redid their kitchen a couple years ago and spent $180,000 on their kitchen. Why do you need a $30,000 stove? I do not know. My stove works fantastically. But yeah, you can spend a lot of money on custom cabinetry and all that stuff. But the things that you should be looking at when you're looking at homes, like if you walk into a house and people are living there, like, and it smells like what they cooked for breakfast, that's a great place to start. Like, I love offering on houses that people are already living at because they don't show as well. They're not going to make as much money. It's not staged. It's not all prepped and pretty and everything. And also, they want to get out of there. Like, they don't want people walking through their house all the time. Like those are perfect opportunities to send in an early offer. They accept it and they just get the process done with because they don't want to do open houses and showings and leaving and taking the dog out and taking the kids out and all that stuff. So if you can offer like where they're living there, you walk in and there's smudges all over the walls. Like it costs like $3,000 to paint a house, $4,000 to paint a house. The flooring is bad, all that kind of stuff. I know that doesn't sound awesome to buy, but that's really where you can get some great value on buying a property. That's it for me. That's it. Any other questions or anything? Yeah. Let's get into it. Yeah. Do you know what a 1031 exchange is? It's fun. It's it's a vehicle for investors to save money on capital gains. So you sell a property. Something that you should know before we get into 1031s is you get a capital gains exemption if you own a house. So you single? You married? Single? Single. So you own a house, say for 5 years, whatever, and you're going to sell it. You buy it for $1 million and you sell it for 1.4 million, right? So you're making a $400,000 gain on it. So you as a single person, you're going to get that first $250,000 of that $400,000 profit. You're going to get that tax-free, no income tax, no nothing. You're going to get $250,000 in your pocket tax-free, and then the remaining $150,000, you'll get capital gains tax on that, anywhere from like 21 to 39%, something in that, depending on your income on that particular year. So if you're a married person, it's a $500,000, a $500,000 exemption. So if you were married and you made that same $400,000 gain, you wouldn't have to pay tax on any of that. You'd get that tax-free. So 1031 only has to do with investment properties, which is what you have versus primaries. 1031 exchange, we do that same thing. You buy it for $1 million, sell it for 1.4 million. That tax that you're supposed to pay on that, you don't get the exemption, that $500,000, $250,000 exemption. You don't get it on investment properties. So that full $400,000 you're going to have to pay tax on. So you can pay that tax, get the remainder, put it in your pocket, or you can do a 1031 exchange. 1031 exchange, that $400,000, you don't get taxed on any of it as long as you invest it in another investment property, anywhere in the United States. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in California, outside of California. But the thing that and then you can build your empire, right? You can go and buy a triplex, a couple of triplexes in Nevada or something with that $400,000. And then once those appreciate, you can sell those and do another 1031 exchange and buy fourplexes in Cincinnati and in Florida. And then here you can buy investment properties. So you can do it as many times as you want. But that tax never actually goes away. You're not getting rid of it, you're just deferring it. So $400,000 here, right? You go and buy some other properties, you don't get taxed on any of it. So if you ever sell one of those properties or all those properties, you're going to have to pay tax on all those ones and the initial $400,000. So it doesn't go away. You're just not paying it now. You're like, I'll pay it later, basically. And then if you do another set of purchases, there's 3 layers of tax that you'll have to pay if you ever sell any of those properties, right? And it's all percentages and everything, so you don't have to pay the full kit and caboodle if you only sell one of them. But if you sell all of them, you got to pay all that tax. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in tax that you've deferred. The only way that you can get rid of the tax completely is you die. So you can do it as many times and build your little real estate empire with millions of dollars in taxes of savings. When you die, your heirs get all of that stuff tax-free. They don't have to pay all that retroactive tax, but they have a step up in property tax value. So you die, this initial property, say you're getting taxed $1 million on it, but by the time you die, it's like a $2-3 million property. They're going to reassess your tax basis to that $3 million, or the county will assess it at whatever they think is fair at that time. But that's just for your heirs to worry about. They're just paying market price on tax at that point, but they get everything else, income tax, capital gains tax free. So 1031's great, but you still have to pay that tax at some point. unless you die.
Happens if there's multiple owners
Hmm.
and like one of them
Dies,
how does the tax work on that?
you all have to die. I'll get you, if you're really interested in it, write my number down. 415, you want my phone number? 415 845 5482. My name's Taylor, Taylor. Go ahead and shoot me a text, your email address. I have it, but I'll forget. And I'll get you in touch with Ron Ricard from 1031 IPX. He does all of my 1031 exchanges. He's done like 5 of them for my dad. Like, I trust him. He's really good. He'll talk to you for free, just like our lenders will talk to you for free, give you all that information. I don't want to get too deep into it. I only know this spiel that I'm giving you right now. But like multiple owners, to my knowledge, you would all have to die, but maybe there's some percentage, like a 33%, that you can figure out. But that's the things with 1031s is that I always tell my investors is like, they're not really for you. Like, they're for your kids, pretty much. Like, because my parents own a bunch of investment properties and they've done 1031s on all of them. So the tax advantage for them is not super duper great unless you're buying good investment properties and making monthly income off of them, which they have and they are. In retirement, they're making more than they did when they're working because of these investment properties. But if they ever have to sell them, they have layers of 1031 exchanges that they'd have to pay. So yeah, that's their plan, is to die. Terrible, right? Yeah. It's a great vehicle, but it's not for everybody. A lot of people don't realize that you have to pay that retroactive tax. But I'll get you in touch with Ron. He'll be able to square things away for you. Any other investment things that you want to talk about?
Just wondering, like, are people buying properties and renting them out and then like choosing to rent somewhere else because of like commutes?
Are people buying properties here and then renting them out?
Like a couple of hours further out just because of property values.
Yeah.
And they're going as far as like Tracy or
Absolutely.
the commute is just horrendous to get.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even like Dublin, just in Dublin, houses are still not, I was out there this weekend, houses are still not cheap. Like, they're pretty expensive, but that commute to like true Silicon Valley is an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the evening. Yeah, some people buy in Tracy, Mountain House. People love Mountain House for some reason, right before Tracy. Yeah, you're talking 2 hours. 2 hours, 4 hours, 20 hours a week in the car. Give me a break, dude. But yeah, there's value out there. If you can get a job out there, that'd be fantastic. Working from home kind of screwed everybody up a little bit. Like in 2020, when everybody's working from home, at that time, people were moving to Dublin and Livermore and like, oh, I don't have to go to work anymore. I'm like, yeah, but they will ask you to come back to work. Like, you're not forever. So that's the last couple of years happened. 3 days of work, 3 days a week. Usually the big tech firms want you to come in. So like, we've sold houses to people out in Gilroy in Dublin, and then 2 years later, once they get the capital gains exemption, they sell them, they move back. That's happened like 3 or 4 of my clients. Commute is a bummer. Self-driving cars, dude, come on. I want a self-driving car. I want to be able to sleep on the way to work. It would be amazing. Yeah. Anything else? Questions? Dude, you good? Good? Great. Thank you so much for coming. You got my phone numbers. If you want to go out and take a look at some houses, even if you're not like seriously buying right now, we can do that and you learn a lot more. Like, that's really where a lot of the education happens, inside the house. If you want me to introduce you to any lenders, shoot me a text, send me your email. You can just have that short discussion with them. Again, even if you're thinking about buying right now or in the next 5 years, it'd be good just to talk to a lender to kind of figure out what you're looking at price-wise right now versus if you had X amount of money in 5 years, whatever. What other tips can I give? That's pretty much it. This is going to sound like a salesy thing. People that say, when is the best time to buy a house? I would say June, July, November, December, but really as soon as possible. every time we bought a property, we were so stressed. I mean, I do this for a living, and I'm still stressed out when I buy property just because it's so expensive. But I've never heard any of my clients, any of my buyers over the last 10 years say I would have waited. I wish I would have waited longer to buy a house because prices have just gone up so much. Like I've got a buddy that is going to be a permanent renter because he's waited over the last 5 years and he can't afford a house anymore. Like if he bought a house 5 years ago, he could have got like a pretty nice house. But now the house that he can afford, he's got 2 kids now over the last 5 years, and like he needs a bigger house. Like he'll never own a house here. He'll be a permanent renter. But 5 years ago, when I told him you should buy whatever you can, he could be a homeowner right now and probably would have made $500,000 on it already and stepped up to another home. So waiting is easy to do because you're comfortable. It's the thing that you're doing right now. You're comfortable in your monthly payment and all those expenses and everything. Buying a house is going to cost you a ton of money. It's going to take time and effort, and some emotions are spent in it as well. You have to talk to it about your family. If they know that you're buying a house and they ask questions about it, and then when you buy the house, maybe it's not up to their standards or whatever. There's some stuff that goes into it. I guess I'm saying that it's not the easiest thing to do. It's not impossible. But people usually put it off for those reasons. And then 5 years later, they look back and like, crap. Like, I wish I would have acted on that when I had a chance. So as soon as possible is the best time to buy a house. But also at the same time, don't rush into it. Like make sure you talk to the lender, your finances are in order, and you feel good about it. Cool? Ready? Break. Done. I'm gonna go eat another round of orange chicken.